Many years ago, I was the chief guest at a function. This was held in a hostel for poor students that had been built by a philanthropist. Food and shelter were free, but students had to bear other expenses like tuition and clothing. In my younger days, I have come across many families who would have look after parents who were economically backward but otherwise bright. They used to help them with their fees or clothing and often with their food as well. In those days, most colleges were located in the larger towns. Many poor students who came to study in these towns used to stay with these families and would be treated as a part of family. The woman of the house considered this a good deed and helped the poor students wholeheartedly. Today the situation is different. Even smaller towns have schools and colleges, so this custom has disappeared now. While I was sitting on the dais, I remembered the past and congratulated the person who had built the hostel. It was a good deed and a great help to many students. The hostel secretary told me about some of the students in the hostel who had secured ranks but had a problem in paying their tuition fees. He said, "Madam, this year we have three students from different disciplines who have secured ranks. All of them are from extremely poor families. They have one more year to complete their degrees." "What are they studying?" "One is in medicine, second is in engineering, and third is in commerce." "Can I meet them after the function?" The function went on as usual. Often at functions, too much praise is lavished on the chief guest. Sometimes they even make exaggerated and false claims about the chief guest. I feel this unnecessary praising is a highest form of corruption, where people are easily fooled, and it encourages those who are praised to develop an inflated opinion of themselves. That's why in the 12th century in Karnataka, the great revolutionary leader Basaveshwara warned in his teaching that praise is like golden gallows. After the function, I meet the three poor bright boys whom the secretary had told me about. They were a little puzzled, shy, and nervous. All of them had the same story. Father in a small job, unable to make ends meet, a large family back in the village, no land or any other asset, but they have the determination to excel in studies, and which had brought them here against all odds. I felt sorry for them. There are many parents who struggle to give their children the best of education with tuitions, coaching, and plenty of books. But here were these eager, hard-working students who were struggling to pay their tuition fees. Perhaps Saraswati, the goddess of learning, liked them. "Please call me in June. I will help you with your fees," I promised. They didn't expect this, and I could see the happiness on their faces. As promised, I paid their fees and forgot about the whole incident. Some years later, I was going abroad and wanted to buy a sari for a friend who lived there. I remembered it on the way to the airport and stopped at a sari shop on the way. It was lunchtime, so hardly anybody was in the shop. It was very quiet. I was in a hurry, so I quickly selected a sari that was on display and asked one of the salesmen to pack a similar one and get me the bill. Suddenly, a young gentleman appeared from the back of the shop. He was well dressed, charming, and smiled at me and invited me to sit in his office. I didn't know who he was. I thought he might be one of my ex-students. Many times I can't remember their names, particularly if they were in undergraduate classes. I stepped into his office. It was well furnished, fresh cut flowers, marble flooring, latest modern artwork on the walls, electronic gadgets, and the whole works. In a nutshell, it was an affluent office. "I'm in a hurry to go to the airport. I want the packet immediately," I told him. I opened my purse and gave the money for the sari. I didn't sit down and insisted that I must leave immediately. The young man smiled and said, "Please sit down, ma'am. Your packet will be ready any moment." I wondered when this young man had passed out of our college. "Which year did I teach you?" I asked, trying to place him in a batch I had taught. "No, ma'am, I was not your student." "But you know me?" "Yes, I met you a few years ago in a student hostel." I was unable to remember him. "You had come there as a chief guest," he reminded me. "I met you with two of my friends. You paid my final year BCom fees." Now I did remember him. He had been one of those bright-eyed and nervous young boys, so different from what I saw today. I felt happy. "What are you doing now?" "Ma'am, I am manager and partner in this sari shop. God is very kind. I am well settled now." "Where is your family?" "I am married and settled here. My two brothers are students and live with me. My two sisters are married. My parents are very happy now." By then, my packet had been delivered to me and I got up to leave. He came right up to the car to say goodbye. It was getting late, so I rushed and just made it to the aircraft. As the flight took off, I wanted to ensure that the sari was good and opened the bag, and I was surprised. There were two saris. I had wanted to buy only one and had paid for only one, but the packet contained not only two saris but also the money that I had paid, along with a small note. "Ma'am," the note read, "it was very kind that you paid for my fees without knowing me. Many times I have wondered why did you did that. I was a total stranger and not related to you at all. You never expected anything from me. Now I have made it a point to help people that are not related to me without any expectations. This is my small gift to you. It may not be a big thing, but I would like to give you with affection and gratitude. You have changed my life." I was touched by his words, and tears filled my eyes. I reached Mumbai. My international flight was delayed due to a technical problem, so I thought I would go and buy some snacks at Santa Cruz Market. While walking on the footpath with a friend, I stumbled and fell down. My foot swelled up, and I was worried that it might be fractured. My friend lived in Mumbai, so she took me to a doctor close by. She assured me that though he was a little expensive, but he was very good. We went to this doctor in car. The clinic was modern and the receptionist was very smart and professional. She asked whether I had an appointment, and when I said no, she asked me to wait. She talked to the doctor and then sent us in. The doctor was very young and confident. I felt at ease. He made me comfortable with his smile. While he was examining my leg, he started a conversation. "Ma'am, I have met you before. You look older now." "Where have you met me before?" "I was in a student hostel. You had come there as a chief guest, and after the function I met you with the two of my friends." I guessed who he was, but wanted to reconfirm. "Where are your other friends now?" "One is in Bangalore and other is in USA." "How come you are here?" I explained the reason. By that time he knew what was wrong with my leg. "Don't worry, it's not a fracture, just a torn ligament. You will be alright with medicine." I was happy that this boy was doing well and was also relieved that there was no fracture. While I was about to leave, I asked him, "Are you married?" With the same confident smile, he replied, "Yes, my wife is also a doctor and we have settled here." Then he called the next patient in. When I came out, the telephone on the receptionist's desk buzzed. Probably the doctor was talking to the receptionist. Maybe he was telling her not to collect any fees, but still I wanted to pay. He had just started a clinic in such a posh area and was also married. I wanted to encourage him. I opened my purse. The receptionist said it's rupees 300. Isn't that bit too much? I was surprised and my hand was still inside the purse. No, the doctor himself told me the amount. Yours was not confirmed appointment. I paid the bill and left. I had helped 3 people at the same time without expecting anything in return, but their attitudes were so different. One person felt grateful for my help and wanted to help others in a similar manner. The other didn't even mention the help he had received from me and felt neither grateful. He treated me exactly as he would have treated a perfect stranger. When people with different ideas face the same situation, they act differently. I have yet to meet the third one who is in the USA.